Good morning, everybody. Afternoon, evening, whatever it is where you're watching. This is Chris with Man vs. Fishing, and today we're going to do a walkthrough on the Native Titan 13.5. I picked it up last year. I've done a few mods to it. I've used it a few times, and everything seems to be going well. So I figured, why not? Let's flip this thing around. Let's show you guys what we got going on. Show you the upgrades I've made to it. And we'll kind of go from there. All right, here it is, Native Titan 13.5, 13.5 foot long pedal drive, and then I've gone through and made some of my own modifications, done some of my own stuff to it. So let's start up here at the front. So the first thing that I did is I have mounted a bow mount trolling motor up here on the front, and of course in our state, if you have a motor on it, you have to license it. But it was pretty simple. I've used the this is the aluminum quick release plate from Motorguide, and the only thing that I regret doing on this is the plate is actually backwards for this motor mount, and I actually had to drill some holes and make adjustments in the motor plate itself. I had to drill a couple extra holes. No big deal, it was pretty easy to do. But the reason I ended up doing that was to make sure I had the clearance up front. So you can see here, I've got no bolts in anywhere up in this area. They're all back here. I've got 6 of them. And basically what I did is I took some HDPE plastic cutting board. It was actually cheaper to buy cutting board than it was to buy the actual HDPE boards themselves. I took a hole saw and I drilled out some plugs with like an 1 3/8 or something hole saw, and then I sanded and cut the angles to match what I needed for the kayak, and then just made spacers. That's why there's 2 different colors here. There's a white board and black board. Anyway, you can see if I pull the camera around here, it's like that all the way around. So I've got 6 bolts in there that hold this bracket on. This bracket is solid, it's not going anywhere. On the back side of this bracket I put some HDPE strips for backing, and so it covers the surface area on the back. I actually feel better pulling up on this bracket than I do on the handle itself that was originally part of the Native. The other thing I did here is I ran a rope up, so there's some extra bolt holes here, and I just doubled over some rope, knotted in the hole up here, and that knot recesses right down into this plate, and then I put some PVC on the end. So I still have a handle in the front that I can pull from. It works absolutely perfect. It's great. I can actually pick up right here on the motor when I go to wheel this down to the water if I want the motor on it before I get down there. Along with that, I put in a receptacle plug for the motor itself. I shortened up the actual cable that came with the motor, and I put a plug in, and this plug runs back to my battery in the back, and I'll show you that in a minute. I've actually left this in a way kind of open so I can make other modifications if I want down the road. Also on the motor, I put a bolt through the release plate, and the reason I did that is I put a rope here with a clip and on this eye bolt, and I can just clip this on, and then I ran the rope up underneath the bungee lashings to the front, so I can actually pull on this to release and just give the head of this motor a little bit of a push, and it'll drop it down into the water. And then with the other end of the rope, it actually loops around, and I just take this other end and I tie a loop up here on the motor itself once I'm ready to get on the water, and then I can just pull on the foot pedal, release the motor from up here, and pull on the head and pull it back up to its position it's in right now, and it works great. So there's that. That's the motor. Let's work our way up to the front. Pedal drive. Most of you, if you've looked at the Native and kind of looked at the upgrades that a lot of the people do, the one thing I did do was I put on a weed guard, and this keeps the weeds from getting tangled up between the prop and the axle or the shaft that's in here. This keeps the weeds off of it, and you don't have to sit and pick stuff off as much. It actually keeps it pretty clean. I haven't done any other upgrades to this yet, but I think I'm going to. I think I'm going to go the gear oil route, and I'm going to wipe all the lithium grease out of everything, and I'm going to fill this up with gear oil because it looks like that's the way to go. It keeps the wear and tear down on the parts. Back here's the battery. Now, this is the first time I've actually set it behind the seat. I'm going to try it out today, but usually I've set it back in this portion here. And what I've done with the battery is I've made a quick connect down here, so I can actually unplug my battery from the side of the kayak and I can plug it back in. And then from here, I ran my wires up from here all the way up to the front of the plug. Now in the future, part of the reason I did that in the future, I want to be able to separate it up there and put a lithium battery up in the front, and then I want to be able to power my crate when I get my crate built here in the back, and I'll be able to do that out of that plug. So then the next thing I did is, I wasn't too impressed with the Boonedox, and so I made my own. So I went to a metal shop in my area that deals in, they sell off their cutoffs, their scrap and stuff, and I bought some scrap and I welded up. Not that I was a great welder or anything, but I welded up and made my own Boonedox. And the way I did it is I bolted it through my track, through the kayak, and I put a backing plate, some more HDP backing plate behind this to make sure this was secured tight, that this wasn't going to go anywhere and I wasn't going to pull through the kayak. I made a couple of mounts, so when I slide, these wheels slide in just a 90. When I slide this out, I can put this up in here and push this pin through and actually hold my wheels in place when I'm on the water. I also drilled holes in the side here. I can run my pin through when I'm moving it around, although I usually don't. I usually just wheel it. And then the wheels I used were just off of a typical bicycle cart, something you'd find, you know, for pulling kids around. They basically just have bearing axle in it, and I just had to drill and put a pin through, and that holds the wheel on place, and they work great. It gets around real easy. And yeah, that's about the majority of what I've done so far, other than I did add the fish finder. The fish finder ran the Hobie, not sure you can see that, for some reason it keeps getting dark, but I ran the Hobie plug up in that, pulled my wires through. My wires come up into this area here, and then from this area I come back out here, right here by the foot pedal where the pedals come down, and I have another Hobie style plug, and that runs the cable down, and my transducer mounts down in the slot underneath the kayak in the transducer area. And then my battery for the fish finder sits right up here underneath the hatch. And for now, that's the way it's going to work. Once I get the other electrical ran, I'll change it up and I'll do another video on that. But that's pretty much what I've got going on. Storage, I found these awesome frickin' tackle boxes at Cabela's. It's the Flambeau 4510, and they are fantastic for holding plastics and just being able to slide them up under the seat. So I can run 2 of those. All my other tackle at some point here is going to get moved to the crate, and my rod holder will change. I'll end up reconfiguring that a little bit. I want to try and get a little extra room in the back here, so if I wanted to put a spare seat in the back for my kids, I could and still take my tackle. But that's a quick walkthrough on the Native. I'll get it back out here on the water here in just a minute and kind of show you some of the stuff I do with it. But yeah, so far it's been pretty good. It's kind of nice to be able to pedal and get somewhere instead of having to paddle. And the other thing that's awesome is having this bow mount trolling motor. And of course I went all out and got the spot lock, so it's really cool to be able to roll up to a spot, hit the spot lock, and just stay right where you're at and not have to worry about being blown around by the wind. So there it is. This is Man vs. Fishing. Thanks for watching.